Hello world, this is the CS50 podcast. My name is David Malan and this is episode 0, our very first. And I'm joined here by CS50's own Colton Ouden. Yep, Colton Ouden. This is an interesting new direction that we're going. Yeah, it's one in which we clearly haven't rehearsed. Colton. Yeah. So, but what we thought we'd do with the CS50 podcast is really focus on the week's current events as it relates to technology. Use this an opportunity to talk about the implication of various technologies and really explain things as it comes up, but really in a not visual way. And so, perhaps, I think the topics Colton and I hit on here will focus on things you yourself might have read in the news that may didn't register necessarily, or maybe you didn't really understand how it pertains to technologies that you yourself use. Yeah, and I think that ties as well to prior when we did CS50 Live, and this was kind of the same idea. Yeah, absolutely. Whereas CS50 Live, when we did it on video, was much more visual. We prepared a slide. We actually looked at examples, videos, and such. Here we hope we really try to focus on ideas. And I'll be up to you to decide if this works well or not well, but we come prepared with a look at some of the past week's news. And why don't we get right into it? Yeah, absolutely. One of the things I noticed actually is I put together this list of topics, but the one thing that I didn't put in here that you actually found and put in here today was something about Facebook password. Yeah, so a website named Krebs on security, the author of this, was contacted apparently by some employee, presumably a current employee on Facebook, who revealed to him that during some recent audit of their security processes, they discovered that for like 7 years, since 2012, had one or more processes inside of Facebook been storing password user password like yours and mine, potentially in the clear, so to speak, clear text, no ciphertext, which means unencrypted in some database or some file. Somewhere. Typically, people will use some sort of hashing algorithm to store things cryptographically and much more. Typically, people will use some sort of hashing algorithm to store things cryptographically and much more securely. Indeed, even like ROT 30, like rotate every character 30 place, would having arguably more security. And there is no huge amount of technical detail out there. If you go to cryptsonsecurity.com, you can actually dig up the blog post itself. And then Facebook actually did respond. And I think there's a link in Krebs on security to the Facebook announcement. But to be honest, the famous announcement, which is a new room.fb.com, pretty to be honest. It's pretty nondescript and really does. I mean, it's a kind of disingenuous opportunity to talk about best practice when it comes to powers and all of the various other mechanisms that they have in place to help you secure your password, and yet they really kind of didn't address the topic in hand, which is well, despite all of those mechanisms, you were storing our password in the clear, or at least millions of Facebook users, particularly on Facebook Live. lighter weight version of the app that is useful in low bandwidth location or where bandwidth is very expensive or slow. So this strikes you of as an opportunity for them to what hand wave over the issue and sort of distract people. Is the sort of how it disrupts you? Yeah, maybe. I think they, you know, acknowledgement the issue, but then use this an opportunity to emphasize all of the things that are being done well. And that's fine, but I think the work is done and disservice when companies aren't just candid with their mea culpas, what they got wrong. I think there's learning opportunities, and as I read this, there is a little for me as a clinical person or as an aspiring program to really learn from, other than the high order bit, which is encrypt your password. But how this happen? What are the processes that failed? I mean, if companies like Facebook can't get this right, how can little old me, an aspiring programmer, get these kinds of details right? I wonder. So, an article more about how they failed and how they could address it, and how other companies could address it. You think that would be more productive? I think so. I mean, postmoderns, as they're called in many countries, including in tech. And I always really admired companies that when they do have some significant mistake or human error where they own up to it and they explain in technical terms exactly where we wrong, they can still have a more layman's explanation of the problem too, where most people may only take an interest on the level of detail, but for a technophiles and for the students. They can still have a more layman's explanation of the problem too, where most people may only take an interest in the level of detail, but for the technophiles and for the students and the aspiring technophiles out there, I think it's just appreciate. And these are such teachable moments and all that, but I would respect the person, the company all the more if they really just explain what is they fail so that we can all learn from it and not repeat those mistakes. If a large company like Facebook is doing something like this, how prevalent do you think this practice in the real world? Yeah. Oh my god. I mean, probably frightening me. Come on, and if it's just if you have fewer users and fewer eyes on the company, you probably just notice these things less frequently. But I do things are changing. I mean, with laws like GDPR in the EU, the European Union, I think there is increased pressure on companies now, increasing legal pressure on them to disclose when these kinds of things happen. I think this increased pressure of companies now, increasing legal pressure on them to disclose when these kinds of things happen, to impose penalty when it does, therefore discourage this from even happening. And I wonder why this audit detected this in 2019 and not in 2012, 2012 or 2050 or 2040 and so forth. Called GDPR did happen back in 2012? Oh no, this was recent that one came onto force. Recent months actually has this been rolled out. Was this is related all to proliferation now on cookie measures that you see on websites that's US specific where I believe is not being enforced. That's US specific where I believe is now being enforced because that actually has been around for quite some time in Europe. Anytime you took your laptop abroad, for instance, would you notice that almost every darn science asks you, hey, can we store cookies? And honestly, that's a very annoying and almost silly manifestation of it because that really reality is, as you know, I mean the web doesn't work without cookies, or at least dynamic applications don't work. And anyone who's taken CS50 or who's on a bit of web programming really in any language know that the only way to maintain stay in most HTTP based applications is with cookies. So I mean we create a culture where people use dismiss yet another message, and I don't think that's a net positive either. So I almost think that they do it already and sort of legally can get away with it by having this message visible. Yeah, I mean, it's like cigarette ads, which abroad as well there was. Before the US, there was more of it, I presume.